Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Engage 8 podcast. I am Josh and my co-host Mike. Today we are going to be recapping the NFC and AFC championship games with the Chiefs and the Eagles winning those games and going to the Super Bowl. We also have a ton of coaching news and headlines around the league. So we will start here with Pete Carroll going to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think this is a pretty good hire for them overall. I know he's a little bit older. He's going to be the oldest coach in the NFL once he starts next season. But I like this hire. He's a proven winner. He's going into a division where you have monster head coaches. You needed to get a guy like this in that division, and they did. The biggest story, of course, is his relationship with Jim Harbaugh. When Carroll was at USC, Harbaugh was at Stanford. Harbaugh beat him as a 41-point underdog in 2007 in Harbaugh's first season at Stanford. Carroll then went on to Seattle. Harbaugh, a couple years later, follows him to go to San Francisco. They, of course, are division rivals in that matchup. And now we see Harbaugh last year go to the LA Chargers. Carroll now goes to the Las Vegas Raiders for this season. They are 6-6 in their 12 games all time in this rivalry, so it's a very even rivalry. AFC West now is all legends with Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh, Andy Reid, and Sean Payton. They have 5 Super Bowls between those 4 head coaches, with a chance at a sixth here with Andy Reid. Like I said, it's interesting to hire the oldest coach in the NFL, but Pete Carroll's a really good coach. People forget that Pete Carroll was above 500 with those Seahawks teams in his last few years there in a tough division with Kyle Shanahan when they were really running it. And of course, Sean McVay in that division as well. So I think Pete Carroll's proven head coach. There were definitely other options out there that they could have gone with, more of an unproven guy. They could have gone with Moore or, of course, Ben Johnson if they would have gotten him, but they decided to go with Pete Carroll. I like the hire. You get an experienced guy there, you get an adult in the room in Vegas, and I think it's going to be a great hire for them.
I also think this is going to be a great hire for them. They get obviously a veteran coach, like you said. He's older, 75. He has tons of experience being a head coach. He's won a Super Bowl. He knows what it takes. If anything, he will be able to build a culture in Vegas that we haven't really seen recently. We thought they would have had that with Antonio Pierce, but this year they really kind of struggled with it. And he can build a culture. Obviously, this team needs a quarterback as the number one need, but they have chances to address that in the draft or maybe in the offseason. Who knows? But yeah, I think this is a good hire. It'll be interesting to see who he hires as his coordinators. He is older, like you said. Maybe he goes out there and plays quarterback for him by himself. We've seen him throw the football. He can do that, but he has a chance to reignite his rivalry that he had with Jim Harbaugh when he was with the 49ers in college, even when the two were coaching in college. They were rivals. I think this is a good hire, and I think this could help the Raiders in the long term. Even if he's only there for 2, 3 years, I think he can develop a culture for him.
I also want to say, shout out to Pete Carroll. He's 73 years old. He does not look 73.
No.
He's in good shape for a 73-year-old. He's got some gas left in the tank. I think he's going to go for another 3, 4 years, maybe 5.
Hmm.
He's got it. He obviously is passionate about the game. He wanted to come back. He could have rode off into the sunset with Seattle, but he decided not to. On the younger side here, we have Liam Cohen going to the Jaguars. The whole situation here was just very odd. He didn't want the Jags job because Trent Baalke was there. He then verbally agrees to being the highest paid coordinator in football with Tampa Bay, as long as he agreed to not talk to other teams. That was the stipulation there before he signed the contract. Jags go on to fire Trent Baalke and want to bring Cohen in for an interview. Liam Cohen goes and says, "Hey, Tampa Bay, can I get another day? We'll sign the contract Thursday morning." He goes to Jacksonville in that day that he gets before he signs the contract. He doesn't tell Tampa Bay of that. He doesn't answer calls from anyone in Tampa Bay. He goes and signs with Jacksonville for that head coaching job later on that day and completely ices out Tampa Bay. We said it a couple weeks ago. This is just the guy he is. He bounces around from job to job. He doesn't really know what he wants. He finally gets a head coaching job in the NFL, so maybe he doesn't start bouncing around now. I doubt he'll go somewhere else after a year here. But yeah, that was of course very weird. The Duval was very weird in the press conference. The showing him his office and him just putting his hands on his hips and saying, "This is really cool, guys," and then stares into the camera. He's an odd guy. I do think he's a good coach. He had some success with Will Levis in Kentucky. He, of course, had great success this year with Baker Mayfield as the offensive coordinator there. He was about to be the highest paid coordinator in football. So I think this is a good hire for the Jags. I think Liam Cohen is a good coach. He's a weird guy, but a lot of people said Dan Campbell was weird after his interview, and we saw how that worked out for the Lions.
Yeah, Jacksonville, the community.
The community.
Duval. Um,
You got the head
uh,
movement down.
you gotta have that movement in there for that interview. But it's yeah, very interesting hire. The Jags go out and get Liam Cohen. They seem to really want him. They fired their GM to go out and get him. He's now going to most likely get whatever GM he wants, it seems. Interesting hire. First time head coach. He's only a coordinator in the NFL for 1 year. And we haven't talked about this yet, but Houston Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick parted ways or fired, pretty much fired by the Houston Texans. After last year, he looked like he could be a big head coaching candidate. Looked like one of the best offensive coordinators in the league. Uh, Thought he was going to get a job this year no matter what, and that Texans offense went out and had a very rough year. The offense wasn't great, and he gets fired. And we see Liam Cohen have 1 good year as an offensive coordinator. That doesn't mean he's going to be able to have sustained success. So hopefully for the Jags and Trevor Lawrence, he will continue to be that guy. The Buccaneers lose back-to-back years losing offensive coordinators. Obviously, Dave Canales went to Carolina last year, and now they lose Liam Cohen to the Jags. So Todd Bowles will be looking for another offensive coordinator. So I think this could be a good hire for them. He could change the offense. Someone needs to get Trevor Lawrence going. We thought it was going to be Doug Peterson, and it wasn't. They have weapons like Brian Thomas Jr. They have two solid running backs. They have the talent out there to get it done, but it depends on if Liam Cohen can continue to be that offensive guy that he's showed so far.
Yeah, I think that's a great point with the whole Bobby Slowick thing. And I want to say first, the Texans offense last year was not the Texans' offensive issues last year were not Slowick's fault, in my opinion. I think it's completely on the offensive line and the receivers getting hurt. The offensive line, they were a little banged up, but they mostly just had regression, especially Laramie Tunsil. And the receivers, as we know, Stephon Diggs gets hurt, Tank Dell gets hurt, Nico Collins misses significant time. So there were a lot of issues with this Texans offense, and I wouldn't put it on Bobby Slowick, but this is an exact point that you just brought up. And we saw it with Ben Johnson possibly too, and now we see it with Liam Cohen. If you have 1 good year as an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator and you get head coaching jobs, most of the time you should take it because the way this league moves is you're the top candidate one day and then you're bottom of the barrel getting fired the next. Ben Johnson, he took the risk a couple years in a row, didn't take head coaching jobs, bet on himself, and ended up working out for him. But who knows? Let's say Ben Johnson doesn't accept the Bears job this cycle or any job. He goes back to the Lions. The Lions have a down year offensively, and all of a sudden he loses out on $10 million dollars.
Oh, exactly.
So yeah, it makes a ton of sense why Liam Cohen would try to take this job. But Aaron Glenn also, same situation on the defensive end. He has a good year this year despite all the injuries, and he gets an offer from the Jets. He absolutely has to jump on that. I very much expected this to happen. He's the type of leader, in my opinion, that I think the Jets need. They need a leader in that locker room, similar to Vegas needing a leader in Pete Carroll. The Jets do, and they get Aaron Glenn here. Glenn played for the Jets for a while. I think their number one target, I believe, was Mike Vrabel, and you get a guy in Aaron Glenn who maybe he's a little bit of a diet Mike Vrabel, but you get that same personality from him. He's going to come in there, he's going to lead the locker room, and I love Aaron Glenn. I wish him the best of luck, and I think he's going to be great as the Jets head coach.
Yeah, I think he's could be a very good leader of men for this Jets team. Their culture, especially towards this year and towards the end of the year, did not look good at all. They had players going on Twitter saying they're not going to be here next year no matter what. Maybe he can get this culture going. He's, like you said, he played for the Jets. He knows the city. He knows how much pressure is on these players just playing in the city of New York. I do think this hire is probably going to come down to some of the coordinators that he hires offensively and defensively. Maybe he goes and picks from the Lions, but there's really not too much left. They seem to be getting their staff ready to go. So he's going to have to find some coordinators offensively specifically to get that offense going. And then obviously the Aaron Rodgers drama is huge. Will he stay? Will he move on and retire? So I like the hire. I just think it depends on who he puts around him for if it's going to be successful or not.
Jeff Ulbrich takes the Falcons job as the DC. This is a very interesting hire here, in my opinion. Ulbrich did not do a great job with the Jets this year. Of course, he was the DC, then becomes the interim head coach over there. We don't know how much he had to do with the defense after he became the interim head coach, so it's really hard to tell and evaluate him this season. But he did a very good job as the DC in the Jets the previous few years. He had a ton of talent, of course, so you have to hold that to his standard there. But he still did a really good job. That defense was one of the best in football. He's going back to Atlanta now. He was the DC there a while back. I think this is a fine hire for Atlanta. You get a guy who's led a defense over the past 3, 4 years. This has been really, really good. The Falcons need a guy that could take their talent and maximize it as best they can. And I think Ulbrich could be the guy for that. So I like that hire for Atlanta.
Yes, as a guy who has head coaching experience, he can probably help Raheem Morris with that. I think it's a solid hire. He should be the guy to go in there and help this defense more. Raheem Morris can kind of just focus on, I guess, the entire team as a whole and just being a leader. Have Jeff Ulbrich focus on the defense, but I think it's a good hire for them. They need something to go in there and help that defense. That was a defense I expected to be very good in Atlanta, and it really wasn't. He's gonna have to find a way to get better pass rush. We talked about all year how their pass rush was terrible, so I think it's a good hire, but we'll see how much he can do.
The Lions, of course, hire a new offensive coordinator. The Lions, of course, hire a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. As I expected, Shep gets the DC job for the Lions. He's very Aaron Glenn-esque in the way he runs his locker room. He's very pushing of his players. He's a motivator. He's a former player. Guys really respect him. So I love this promotion for him. Very well respected guy who resonates with the guys in the locker room. That's exactly what the Lions do. He is one of those guys that the Lions have had a ton of in their coaching staff over the past few years. You got Randall L. Glenn, you have Shepard, of course, on this Lions coaching staff, all former players who resonate with the players, and you get to be on the same level as them. So I love that hire for the Lions. For offensive coordinator, they go with John Morton from the Broncos. He's been around the league a lot. Of course, he was with the Saints in the mid 2010s, as most Lions coaches really have been. That Sean Payton, Dan Campbell tree is really building now. He had some complaints with the Jets because he, quote, passed too much. There was a specific time, I guess, where he passed it 4 straight times from the 1 yard line with the Jets. They were saying stuff from the Jets locker room like, this guy thinks we play in a dome. He thinks we're the Saints. That's very concerning, of course, because the Lions really want to run the ball and Lions fans want them to run the ball. But I trust Dan and Brad to make the right call. They've made almost every right call in their tenure in Detroit, so I trust them here. And of course, not only was he with the Saints, but he was also with Sean Payton last year. Engstrand, who I expected to be the Lions offensive coordinator, is probably going to end up going to be the Jets offensive coordinator now. So good for him. That's a good job. He gets to go there in Glenn. And like I said, that Dan Campbell tree keeps expanding.
Yeah, it does keep expanding. John Morton, he was been an offensive coordinator once in his career, like you said, in 2017. He did rank 28th in yards, 24th in points. Was a long time ago, and his quarterback was a 38-year-old Josh McCown throwing to Robbie Chosen and Jermaine Kearse. And their RB1 for that season where they didn't run the ball much was Bilal Powell. So they
Yeah,
didn't really have
exactly.
much going on. Obviously, their offensive line wasn't phenomenal either, but I think it's gonna be a good hire. The Broncos have gotten their offensive staff really picked apart by NFC North teams this week as John Morton, they used the Broncos passing game coordinator, has been hired for the Lions OC, and then for DC, Kelvin Shepard, they just hire in-house. We've seen some teams struggle with the in-house hires. We saw the Eagles after they lost both coordinators, they went in-house for both of them, and it didn't work out, and they had to move on from both of them. So we'll see how this works out for the Lions, hiring Kelvin Shepard as their defensive coordinator. I think it could be good, should be a good hire. He's going to have a lot of control of that defensive staff. It should be another very good unit. They're getting Hutch back and just getting all their guys back, really getting healthy. So I think those are solid hires. Let's see if they can keep the success that they had the last 2 years.
The Cowboys also hire a couple coaches in this cycle here, head coach and defensive coordinator. We'll start with head coach. Jerry Jones hires Schottenheimer for his new head coach. This whole cycle was very, very weird and hush hush for the Cowboys. You didn't hear much about it. You didn't really hear who they were interviewing. Eberflus joins his staff as a DC. I think he's a pretty good DC. He will probably have some success there. We saw he was good at defensive play calling with the Bears. He's just not a good head coach, and he's not a good guy to have running your offense. Schottenheimer, I don't know much about, but he's an offensive guy. Feels like Jerry just kind of had to get a guy that would listen to him. Jason Garrett, he had him and didn't let go of him for a while because he would listen to Jerry. Similar thing with Mike McCarthy. Maybe McCarthy pushed a little bit more back than Jerry would have liked. He doesn't extend him, doesn't want to pay the money. He hires a guy in house who's going to listen to him, and that's what Jerry Jones wants. Whether that's the recipe for success, I don't think so personally, but you really don't know. Regardless, Jerry's going to get what Jerry wants, and he has his new servant to be his head coach.
Yes, he gets the son of Marty Schottenheimer, a legendary head coach here, Brian Schottenheimer. First time head coach. He's been around a lot of places. Offensive coordinator in the early 2010s with the Rams, the Jets. He was offensive coordinator with the Seahawks. He's been all around the league, and now he finds his spot as the Cowboys head coach. Was a very interesting job. We thought maybe it was going to be Dion out of nowhere, but they hire in-house with Schottenheimer. He does, I think, have a good relationship with Dak, so that could be part of the reason they're obviously paying Dak Prescott so much money that he's going to be the next quarterback pretty much no matter what. But yeah, they have a very good relationship. So it's pretty much a Jerry Jones hire. Hopefully, this can continue to get Dak going. The offense wasn't great early this season. They need to find a way to get a run game. So we'll see if he can be able to make that happen. And the hire of Eberflus, I think he's a solid defensive coordinator. He has a lot of talent, high end talent on the defensive side. They're not really deep, but you got guys like Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland. They have playmakers to go out there and get it done. So I think that's a solid hire.
Okay, last one here. Bears hired Dennis Allen as their DC. We talked about this on the last pod. As expected, he goes to Chicago. He's a very respected DC around the league. Multiple teams wanted to bring him in as a DC, which is similar to Ben Johnson as a head coach. A ton of teams wanted to bring him in as a head coach. The Bears land him because they have a guy like Caleb Williams and then Dennis Allen, another guy who a lot of teams wanted. You said you wanted him for the Colts, possibly. He ends up going to Chicago, highly regarded guy. I like this hire for the Bears. I think they're making the right hires so far. Shout out to Ryan Poles. Maybe his job's on the line, and that's why he's trying to do whatever pleases the fan base and pleases the McCaskies. But he's getting it done. Bears get their guy, and they're looking up. And we said last year around this time that the Bears were winning the offseason. We'll see if that translates to another bad season or if they can capitalize on winning another offseason. Congratulations to
Oh,
the Bears, back-to-back offseason champs.
well, I think this will make it three in a row for Bears fans
Three?
because they won the offseason when they traded the first round pick, the first
Right,
overall
right,
pick.
right, 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 right.
So they're trying to be. Would you rather win three Super Bowls or three off seasons?
Oh, that's tough. That's a debate right there.
Yeah. The Bears hired Dennis Allen. I think that's a great hire for their defense. He's one of the better defensive coordinators you could have. He was great with the Saints when he was in the role of defensive coordinator. He was great as their defenses outside of this year were very good even when he was the head coach. Struggled this season, but I think when he has a chance to focus fully on that defensive unit, especially the Bears, they have a good defense. I think they could be very good. They also hire a 28-year-old offensive coordinator Declan Doyle from the Denver Broncos staff. We talked about how the NFC North picked them apart. 28-year-old offensive coordinator. He was the Broncos tight end coach. He's very young, obviously 28. He got to start under Kirk Ferentz in the Iowa Hawkeyes program, which is very interesting, considering their offense is usually very rough. But he's been with Sean Payton and the Saints for a long time. He was part of those Saints staffs and followed him to Denver and he gets his chance to be an offensive coordinator that's younger probably than some of the players on that team. So that's a interesting hire, but maybe a very promising young mind to learn under Ben Johnson.
Okay, we will start now our recap of the AFC and NFC championship games. Actually, before we do that, I want to give a shout out to Drake May. He made a Pro Bowl in his rookie year, so
Yes,
shout out
and
to Drake May.
there's one job left. I think it's the Saints,
Yes,
and we don't know who's getting that job. I think it actually I do think it'll be Kellen Moore. It sounds like they're going like to Philadelphia to interview him. Mike McCarthy withdrew his name from that job, so he's going to focus on 2026. I think Kellen Moore could be a good hire for them, uh, but we'll see what happens.
I know how I felt with all the Lions coordinators getting interviewed before divisional round games. I can't imagine how annoyed I would be if my coordinators were getting interviewed right before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we talked about how the Saints kind of are in a rough spot since they don't have a chance to get McCarthy, but I don't know if Cliff Kingsbury's still open to a job. That could be another guy to look at. Cliff Kingsbury, like you said, Kellen Moore. I feel like there's got to be a couple guys out there now that are free to interview, but who knows if they want that job? I don't know.
I think Kellen Moore wants to, or not Kellen Moore. I think Cliff Kingsbury is probably going to stay put. I think he wants to stay with
Yeah,
Jaden Daniels. Why would you not, right?
yeah, that kind of mean, yeah, the great first year.
And you lose your free money from the Cardinals if you take that head coaching job.
Oh,
I
that.
think. I'm
Oh,
pretty
well,
sure.
yeah, then just stay. Why not?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
way less pressure. Still getting paid.
Yeah. Definitely worth it. But yes, we'll move on now to our NFC Championship recap. The Eagles beat the Commanders 55 to 23. This was an absolute ass whooping here. The Commanders' offense was not horrible in this game for the most part, but the four turnovers and the nine penalties are just really, really hard to overcome. It felt a lot like the Lions Commanders game to me. The Lions, of course, being the Commanders in this game. Lions offense was fine in that divisional round game. They had a ton of bad turnovers that really made their offense not look nearly as good despite moving the ball down the field. Lions defense couldn't get any stops off those turnovers and just gave up a ton of points. That's basically what happened to the Commanders here. You have those three bad fumbles, you have the interception, nine penalties. Outside of that, you're moving the ball really, really well. But when you turn it over four times and the Eagles score every single time they get the ball, it's really hard to win a game like that. The Eagles, they go 7 for 7 in the red zone. Commanders were a good 4 for 6 on fourth down. That's right in their game script, but the turnovers just completely dismantled that. The Eagles just overall just out talented the Commanders here. It felt like I got to give credit where it's due to Uno, Jalen Hurts, 20 for 28 in this game, 486 yards and a touchdown, three touchdowns on the ground. He has not been good all year, especially in the passing game, and I've been very critical of him, but I got to give credit where it's due. This was a great game for Jalen Hurts. He bounces back from all the doubt that he's been getting. And we forget that Jalen Hurts' best game of his career was in that Super Bowl, despite that 5 yard Hail Mary he threw at the end of the game. So maybe he can recreate some magic, and hopefully the Eagles' defense for them can get them stops in that Super Bowl.
Yes, the Eagles were dominant in this game offensively. They put up a 55-point performance. Saquon Barkley was great in this game again, absolutely dominated the Commanders in all three matchups this season. He has three touchdowns in this game. First carry for him went 60 yards to the house for a touchdown. Finishes with 118 yards. Just a fantastic running back, and now he gets a chance to go out there and potentially win a Super Bowl and really put a very good. We haven't really seen a team paying a running back win a Super Bowl in a while, and he has the chance with the Eagles to finally do that. The Commanders defensively, they just could not stop Saquon Barkley. They couldn't stop Jalen Hurts in this game. The offense didn't play terrible, just didn't have a performance that they had all postseason where they were marching down the field for no matter what. Didn't really have to punt all playoffs, and they had to do that here. They did get a Tress-Way completion for a first down and fourth down, which was maybe the most obvious. We're going to go for a fake punt here on fourth down I've ever seen. They took 10 minutes to snap the ball, and Tress-Way was able to get a 23-yard completion. No run game for the Commanders here. The Eagles' defense has been good against the run all year, and they were great in this game. The only guy for the Commanders that was really a big threat was Zach Ertz, 11 catches and 104 yards in a game in Philadelphia. De'Ami Brown was slowed down in this game. Zacchaeus was slowed down, and so was Terry. So good win for the Eagles, offensively and defensively. They dominated this game at home. AJ Brown had a great game, like you said. Jalen Hurts was very good in this game. Had a fantastic game all around, and we even saw Will Shipley have a huge run down the field where he got hawked down, but he looked solid. So Eagles onto the Super Bowl with a lot of momentum, looking very good, and we'll see if they can get it done this time.
Okay, we'll move on to the AFC Championship game with the Chiefs beating the Bills once again, 32 to 29. I feel like a broken record here, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, and that's what we're having here with the Chiefs and the Bills in the playoffs. We'll start with the call of short on fourth down because that's the big controversy here. Of course, we were never going to get out of this game with the Chiefs losing without controversy, or the Chiefs winning without controversy, I should say. I agree with most of the people out there. I do agree it was a first down, but the fact that the Bills kept running that no push, tush push thing over and over again with no success doesn't make me have any sympathy for them. You cannot run that play over and over again and keep getting stuffed and then complain that you should have had a first down when you didn't. I mean, of course, if I was in their shoes, I would be complaining as well, but still, it's hard to have sympathy there. The Chiefs' ability to stop that tush push there is something that I definitely look for in the Super Bowl. I know that the Bills are not able to do it nearly as good as the Eagles are. No one is as good as the Eagles are at doing it, but the Chiefs were so good at stopping it. Their defensive front's been so good all year. So we'll see if the Eagles have any success in the Super Bowl with that. The Chiefs remain undefeated at home this year, 4-0 versus Josh Allen in the playoffs. Now, like I said, Chiefs were able to play their game, stay out of third downs, convert every time they get in a third down. On that last possession, third and long, it felt like there was just no way they wouldn't convert, no matter what the odds were of them converting that 3rd and 9. You have Patrick Mahomes, you have Travis Kelce. You're going to get a first down there, and they were able to do that. Bills were perfect in the red zone, but the Chiefs got there 6 times. The Bills only got there 3 times. That's a big difference there. The game's lone turnover did turn into a touchdown for Buffalo, but they needed to force more turnovers. That was one of the keys of the game that we both said going into this game. You have to force Mahomes into turnovers. There's been games this year where he has gotten turnover happy. They weren't able to do it in this game. The comfortability of the Chiefs versus the we can't do this again nature of the Bills was a huge story for me, and it was very prevalent throughout this game. You could feel the tension for the Bills late game. You don't feel that tension with the Chiefs. They're comfortable. They've been here before. They know they can beat this team. They've done it over and over again in the past. And the Bills are in a situation where you keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's a huge story in the media, and it's a mentality that goes into the locker room, which I guess guys are going to go out there and be like, no, we weren't affected by the games before. We're just focused on this game. But you could feel the energy in Arrowhead. They didn't want to have the same thing happen again, and unfortunately, they did. For as much shit as I give Josh Allen, I obviously do think he's a really great quarterback. But they're now 0-4 in the playoffs versus Kansas City, and Josh is not getting any younger. At this point, they're between a rock and a hard place. The longer they stay with McDermott, the more fucked they may be overall. So they're going to have to make a decision there. They're not going to fire him this year. It's too late. But at some point, if you keep losing to the Chiefs in the playoffs or losing in the championship or the divisional round, and you're wasting your young years of Josh Allen, you got a situation where maybe you got to go get a new guy in there and just get a full reset in Buffalo.
Yes, the Bills' offense was good in this game. I agree. I think he got the first down on that little run. I thought he got enough to. I don't know what they saw that made it look like it wasn't a first down, that made it short. It looked like they had marked it a first down at first, and then they changed it. I'd never even heard them give an official ruling on the field that he was short for them to say that he, the call stands. But he doesn't get the first down. Running the tush push for that play was ridiculous, in my opinion. They'd ran it multiple times. They'd gotten stuffed multiple times. But that one did look like he got it, and it didn't count. Uh, Teams that have committed 4 touchdowns and committed 0 turnovers in a playoff game since 1972 are 85-6. Teams to do that since 2020 are 21-2. And those 2 losses since 2020 are both the Bills at Chiefs in 2024 and the Bills at Chiefs in the 2021 divisional round. So his Bills offense plays its heart out, plays almost as good as it can. James Cook in this game was fantastic, 85 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, a couple big plays in the receiving game as well. We saw Mac Hollins be a big target for Josh Allen. He doesn't have too many weapons, but Mac Hollins came up big in this one. Kincaid wasn't great. Obviously, that fourth down play that was unsuccessful. He had a chance to catch it and didn't. Josh Allen, I mean, there's really not much you can say. He played good in this game. He didn't turn the ball over. He got him down the field, and just a couple, I think, bad calls by Joe Brady in the offense with the quarterback sneaks didn't help. And then the Chiefs defense just making that stand was huge. Offensively, for the Chiefs, they moved the ball well. This is one of the best offensive games they've had all year. 32 points, 245 passing yards and a touchdown from Mahomes. He has the one fumble, and that's it. They ran the ball well. Xavier Worthy was unguardable for the Bills defense, which is ironic because the Chiefs traded with the Bills to get that draft pick to draft Xavier Worthy, and he has a dominant game here. The Bills defense had struggled on the road all season, but you thought maybe the playoffs this game they'd finally figure something out, but Mahomes figured them out, got the job done, and finds his way into another Super Bowl. I think it's um, 4 Super Bowls in 5 years.
Yes, four Super Bowls.
He only has 3 losses in the playoffs. 2 are to Brady, 1 is to Mahomes. Both of those 2 losses in the AFC Championship, and then 1 in the Super Bowl. He's never not made it to the AFC Championship. He's on his way to potentially be the best quarterback of all
Burrow.
time.
2 to Brady, 1 to Burrow.
Yeah.
Oh, you said 2 to Brady, 1 to Mahomes. I was like, for a
Oh,
second, I was like, you're talking about Josh Allen? And I was like, no, it can't be 1 to Mahomes.
no, yeah. 2 to Brady, 1 to Burrow.
Burrow,
That's
yes.
what I meant to say. Yes.
Burrowhead.
Yeah. That's maybe he's the one guy who can do it, but we haven't seen him in the playoffs now in 2 years. So just a nice win by Kansas City, and one day someone will finally stop them from going to the AFC Championship. But right now it looks like a unstoppable bus.
Yeah, we move on here to studs and duds. Final thing for this recap, my stud. I told you before I was going to give it to somebody who I've been very critical of. Jalen Hurts, otherwise known as Uno, otherwise known as JH1. He was great in this game. Like I said, 20 for 28, 246 yards and a touchdown, three touchdowns on the ground. He's noticeably pretty injured. Even like you watch him running and he's not even running the same way he used to. He had a couple big runs in this game. That 17-yard touchdown run that got called back did mess up his over for the game, which is unfortunate, but he was really good in this game. He was calm, he was composed. His playoff experience really came to the front in this game, and he has an opportunity to go have another one of his best games on the biggest stage in the Super Bowl here against Kansas City. Kansas City's defense this time around is definitely better than it was the last time when they played him in the Super Bowl, where Jalen Hurts had that crazy game. But it's very encouraging to see him have this game and the Eagles have a 55-point offensive performance going into that big game in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll give my start of the week to Xavier Worthy. He was phenomenal in this game. The Bills had no answer for him and his speed. The Like I said, they traded that pick to draft him. So a little bit of a revenge game, but I think he's very happy where he's at, and he was great in this first ever AFC Championship. And with no Rashee Rice, he was their top weapon. What it seemed like going into the season, Xavier Worthy steps up in the playoffs. No really Kelsey in this game for him, and Worthy was fantastic. So Xavier Worthy is my start of the
I
week.
I even heard Mitchell Schwartz talking about this Chiefs offense on a podcast last week, I believe, and he was talking about how going into the season, their number one option was Hollywood Brown. They were supposed to be playing through Hollywood Brown. He was going to be that pseudo Tyreek role for them. Rashee Rice was going to be doing his thing that he did last year. Both of them get hurt early on in the season. You're stuck with a rookie now who was supposed to be the third option in Xavier Worthy, a speed threat who was going to develop into this crazy player. He immediately gets thrown into that wide receiver one role a couple weeks into the season, and he hasn't been perfect, but he's going to the Super Bowl as a wide receiver one, so he's got to be doing
Yeah,
something right. Um,
definitely.
for my dud of the week, I'm going to go with Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, he did stick to his guns. He went for it 6 times on fourth down, which I do respect, but he is a defensive head coach, and this defense was absolutely awful. They were able to withstand not having as much talent against the Lions by just forcing those turnovers and getting the Lions in short field, and their offense is so good that Jaden Daniels can go score from anywhere, but they weren't able to do that in this game. 7 for 7 for the Eagles in the red zone is very, very disappointing, so I have to give my dud to Dan Quinn.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd make this easy on me, but you didn't. I'm gonna go with just, what, I'll keep it simple. I'll go with Joe Brady. Obviously, they might have got the first down yard wise. I don't know how the NFL doesn't have a system where they can judge where the ball is better. We see in tennis they have videos that show exactly where the ball landed, exactly the position of the ball. The NFL definitely has the potential to have that technology. Just for some reason, they don't want to allow it to be used so they could help the game, but maybe that's because Vegas has influence on it. Maybe that's just because the NFL wants to have influence on it. Who knows? But my dud of the week is going to be Joe Brady. You had to have a better play call on some of those fourth downs. They kept running it just right into Chris Jones and the teeth of the Chiefs defense, but it wasn't working. And they go for it on that fourth down and just putting yourself even in that position where you know if it's close, you're probably not going to get it. They decided to run that play and they didn't get it, and that hurt them. They still had chances to go down and win. They kept themselves in the game, but losing the momentum there was big time. And when that happened, you knew the Chiefs were going to go down and immediately make a big play. And that's what they did. They got a touchdown. So just Joe Brady's play calling on those short yardage plays is my dud of the week.
Okay, that will about do it for this episode of the Engage A podcast. We will be back next week to preview the Super Bowl for you. We'll talk about any other NFL headlines that I'm sure will arise in the coming weeks. Maybe we'll give you some prop bets for that game. We'll find a way to do best bets with just one game. But until then, don't forget to hit like and subscribe at the links in our description for Spotify, TikTok, social media, and all that good stuff. And we will see everybody in the next one.